Good morning, boys and girls. We are on week 3 of reading, and this is day 1 of our new story, Island of the Blue Dolphins. I'm going to be on comprehension with you this week. So before we get started, let's do a little rundown of what this week's going to look like. So today we're going to talk about theme and setting, and then we're going to read the short story alone. Tomorrow we will do an introduction of Island of the Blue Dolphins, which you should read tonight so that you'll be ready for our first read questions tomorrow. Monday is Labor Day, so you will not have any assignments posted for Monday. So you'll have a good long 3-day weekend. Tuesday, we're going to review what we learned on Friday because you're going to have a long weekend and we don't want you to forget. And we'll have our second read questions from reading the second half of the story. And Wednesday, we'll read our paired selection, 7 survival questions, and we'll talk about how it relates to Island of the Blue Dolphins and how a how-to text can help us in survival situations. That means that Thursday is going to be your week 3 test. So that's just a rundown of what this week in reading is going to look like. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about theme. Theme is the message or the lesson that the author wants you to take away from the story. It's not the main idea. It's not what the story is all about. It's the lesson that the author wants you to learn from what the story is telling you. Okay? So you can ask yourselves to try to figure out the theme. What did the characters learn in the story? How did the characters grow throughout the story? How did they change? Some common themes that you'll see when you're not necessarily reading our story, but reading any story, some common themes you'll be able to look for are courage, honesty, love, friendship, forgiveness, loyalty, hope, equality, hard work, and teamwork. So let's talk about setting. The setting is a place, a time, an environment of a story. You can ask yourself where, when, and what. We're really going to just focus on where and when for this story, okay? So where tells you the place or where the story took place, okay? So a story can take place in a home, in a jungle, in a city, in a store, on a boat, at a school. It is just telling you where it's taking place. The time is telling us when did the story take place. And the time can look a little different depending on your story. Your story can take place at an exact time at 10:42 a.m. It can take place in the morning. It could take place in the summer. Or it could take place in a year, 2000, 1998. Or it could take place on a day. It took place last night. Oh, we'll do it tomorrow. So the time is a little bit different than you think about when you think of, oh, what time is it? It's more open. So you could say in the morning, in the afternoon, yesterday, the summer. The setting just tells you where and when. And the setting's really important because it affects what happens in the story. If you're in a city, you're not going to have to do the same things that you would if you're trying to survive in a jungle, right? No, the setting can change throughout the story. The setting can start at one place and move to another. Characters typically react to the setting that they're in. Like I said, if you're in a city, you're not going to act the same way that you are in a jungle, and characters have to interact with their surroundings. You can look for clues in words, or if it's a picture book, our story this week has some pictures in our book. You can look for clues in the pictures to tell you where the setting is as well. Let's go ahead and read our story alone together, and we're just going to kind of use some of those skills that we talked about in reading this story. Jesse heard the horses trotting and the wagon wheels cracking even after the wagon disappeared into the thick forest. Soon, those familiar sounds faded. Then he heard nothing but the summer wind rustling the tall prairie grass surrounding his family's log cabin. Jesse was alone. After reading the title and first paragraph, which of these is the story's most likely theme? And remember, we said that the theme is the lesson that the author wants you to learn from the story. So, is it A, the beauty of nature, B, love of animals, or C, surviving by yourself? What do you think? I would go with C, surviving by yourself too, right? The title says alone, and it says there were unfamiliar, those familiar sounds faded, which means they're unfamiliar now. He heard nothing but summer with tall prairie grass surrounding his family log cabin. Tells you that he's alone. So it doesn't really mention a love about animals or the beauty of nature. It talks about him being alone. So surviving by yourself is what I think the theme of the story is going to be. Let's read on and see if we're right. Jesse's parents had gone to town to buy supplies for the winter. They would be gone several days. His father insisted that Jesse was old enough to stay alone and manage the farm, but Jesse wasn't so sure. Looks like our theme choice may have been right. Jesse milked the cow, weeded the garden, and fixed the latch on the barn door. He cooked his own potato soup and sliced some bread for dinner. That night alone, Jesse had a hard time sleeping. Wolves howled in the distance. He was trained to use his father's musket and keep it nearby just in case. Each night, he lay in the bed, nervous. What figurative language does the author use in this story? Does it help you to visualize the setting? So, I'll go ahead and tell you that the figurative language the author uses is imagery. And imagery are words that help you to get a picture of the story in your head. So let's look back at this paragraph and see what words really help you get a picture of this story in your head. For me, let's see. Jesse milked the cow, he weeded the garden, he fixed the latch on the barn door, and it tells us he had a hard time sleeping. Wolves were howling in the distance. It just gives me a really clear picture of what's going on. The author uses very descriptive words. If he would have just said, there were wolves, okay, but he's telling me that the wolves were howling in the distance. So I can get a picture in my mind of wolves far away howling, right? It's very descriptive and helps me really get a good picture in my mind. Let's keep reading. On the sixth day, Jesse heard a familiar sound. It was the wagon coming down the trail. His parents were home. Oh my goodness, his parents finally came back. Let's look at our last question for this passage. Make an inference about how Jesse is feeling at the end of the story. What evidence from the text supports this inference? So how do you think that he's feeling at the very end? On the sixth day, Jesse heard a familiar sound. It was the wagon coming down the trail. His parents were home. I'm thinking he's pretty excited because the familiar sounds are coming back. It said that they were disappearing at the beginning, but they're coming back now. And look at that punctuation used. That's an exclamation mark. His parents were home. It tells me that he is excited that his parents are home, right? Awesome job. And we just used what we already knew and our context clues to make an inference about how he was feeling. It doesn't tell us how he's feeling in that story, but we were able to infer based on what we saw and what we knew. So let's talk about our assignment for the day. You just have a short 5-question Kahoot game that will be posted right below this video about theme and setting. I hope y'all have an amazing day. Thank you so much, boys and girls.